Okay, then let's do a little bit more with data management. This time I've created a practical 0 folder, practical 00, and then I'm going to mess around with that a little bit. So let's activate that. I've already put in and transferred in some things that I've done in a previous video. Got some rasters, got some vector data, some shape files, some of the things that would be used in different practicals throughout the class. We've got the 0 folders populated with some things this time around. I'm going to show you how to use that properly when you're creating a project archive. That'll be near the end of the video. Let's take a look here at databases for a second. And we've got the Landsat raster imagery again. Have a practical folder that I created by importing things from the existing Bonner County geodatabase. Whatever was in there, I've already got in here. I've also put in these vector shape files from the admin, hydro, point, and linear sets that you should have downloaded by now. I've also created this other geodatabase. I'm calling it non-Bonner County vectors. And we're going to do something a little bit different and special with this. So it's an empty geodatabase. I'm going to activate it. I'm going to right click on it here, and I'm going to create a new feature data set. So by now you probably should have gone through chapter 2 and you should know the difference between a feature class and a feature data set. If you don't, as a refresher, a feature class is basically a shape file that exists within a geodatabase, and a shape file is a point, line, or polygon vector data set. So a feature class is vector data set of some kind. A feature data set can be a combination of any of those things, points, lines, or polygons. And what we're going to do here, we're creating this new feature data set. I'm calling it imports. And what I'm going to do that's a little bit different than we do with other types of data sets, I'm going to import here the coordinate system from Bonner County. And I know that all of these data sets from Bonner County use Bonner County's coordinate system. It doesn't matter which one I pick, it's going to apply this coordinate system to my new feature data set. Let's see here, choose coordinates for vertical stuff. I'm not going to worry about that. X and Y, Z tolerance, we'll use the defaults. And now imports exist. So imports, with those things, there's nothing in it. What we're going to do is import some things from our 0 folder before we jump into ArcMap and do some things. And I know that the climate, fire history, and geology shapefiles are not in the same coordinate system as Bonner County. But the best practice for doing geospatial analysis is to have everything in the same coordinate system before you begin doing analysis. It's a pre-processing step and a really critical one. So neat thing about geodatabases in ArcGIS and featured data sets in particular is that if I do this procedure correctly, what's going to happen, I'm going to grab, let's see here, I want to grab my input features from the correct location, make sure that I'm in the right folder. I'm in the right folder. I want to go to my climate stations, my output location. I'm going to double check this. I double check every single time I do something to make sure it's going to the place I think it's going. And what we've got here is it's going into the correct geodatabase, into the right feature data set. I'm going to give it just the name of climate stations, so it's slightly different from the original. The original is ID climate stations for Idaho. I'm just going to call it climate stations. I'm going to bring in everything, and we're going to click this. It has completed, it imported properly. And if I look here at climate stations as a shapefile standalone, it is in GCS North America 1927. Climate stations here is in GCS North America 1983. It has been reprojected for me into the North NAD 83 State Plane, Idaho West climate stations. Is not that coordinate system. So this is a really, really neat trick in ArcGIS, that you create a feature data set with the proper coordinate system, and we define that by importing the coordinate system from the Bonner County data. Everything we import into that gets reprojected for us. We don't have to use the reprojection tool. So I'm going to import a couple more. Let's import, we already did climate. Let's go for fire history. And we'll just call it fire history instead of Northwest fire history. Just so it's a slightly different name. It's going to the right location. Boom, boom, boom. Progress bar tells us something's happening, it's working. And it updated our catalog for us. Our catalog doesn't necessarily update automatically. If you do some data manipulation in our catalog and you don't see the output over here, one of the things you can do is you can go to the location where you expect that thing to appear. I'm just going to use Practical Zero as an example. If I did something and I created a new data set and it didn't appear in the table of contents, I can just click on refresh or F5 on the keyboard. It's going to refresh that, and then I can see what's in here. I can also do that here within the feature data set, or I could do it on the geodatabase, anywhere in there, and it will show me anything that's new. Whoops. Open up the right things here. So we've got fire history. Let's double check and make sure that it's what we expect. And the expectation is it's going to be GCS North American, State Plane, Idaho. Excellent. And so then our last ones are going to be geology. We want to do both of those. So we will import multiple feature classes this time, just to show how that tool works. And so I clicked on one. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, or actually I can press the Control key in this case, and add both of those. They're going into the imports folder. I don't seem to have an option for renaming them when I do multiple. That's all right. I can live with that. And both of these data sets will then be imported and reprojected. And so they match Bonner County. I can use them in analysis. But I think what I'm going to do, just so you can see how this works, I'm going to, I got a warning on here, upgrade to metadata. Yeah, let's upgrade the metadata. And upgrade type to that, yes. Let's do that. Basically that means it's going to display the metadata the way that we're kind of expecting it to display. Because it's the first time that I've clicked on it since I've imported it. I should probably do that for the other one as well. Okay, close that. And so now, let's refresh that. We'll look back and see, did it do what we think it did? GCS North America, NAD 83, Idaho West. And for the polygon data set, excellent. So what I was trying to do was rename it, because I don't have it open in anything else, so I should be able to rename this. I'm just going to call it Geology. I'm going to call it Geology Arcs. Then I'll change this one to Geology Polys. So the arcs are linear features. There's a line data set. Polys are obviously polygons. So now I've imported these. They're within my project data files. They're in the project folder. One of the databases, I know by the name of the geodatabase. These are things that I imported into the project that came from another coordinate system. So this is kind of my own internal file tracking that I use. I try to give things names that make sense, names that are based upon what they came from. So these imports, I know by looking at the names, I know what's in them, and I can look at the icon and it tells me that these are points, lines, and polygons. And I know because they're in this particular geodatabase, and I know what the database name means. I imported them. They've been reprojected to match the Bonner County data, and I don't need to do anything else with them in order to get into analysis if I want to use these things for analysis. Okay, so let's see here. Is there anything else that I want to do at this point in time? Let's see here. Let's run into a tool. I know that the Bonner County DEM is probably not. It is not in the right projection. It is in GCS North American and NADD 3 Albers. Okay, so let's see. I could do this right here in our catalog, so I might as well do that to demonstrate. Whoops, my toolbox is on the other screen. I'll yank it over here. And let's run to data management tools, projections and transformations, raster. So I can project raster. So I want to do that. I want to make this DEM into the appropriate coordinate system. And I'll run this tool, the input raster, and I don't know if I can I yank it and pull it in here? I can. I see students do this all the time, so I figured I could do it. So it's telling me my input raster is the BCDEM in my rasters folder right here. My output raster is going to the same place. It's calling it project raster. I want to call it something else. I'm going to call it BCDEM PRG. I want to keep raster names as short as possible. Now my output coordinate system, I should be able to grab from there. Maybe not. Maybe it won't let me do it that way. It won't let me do it that way. So I'll go in here and say there's some from my last operation. There's my projection that I want to use for Bonner County, available to me as a favorite. That's cool. If I wanted to import it from another data set, I could just use the import process like I did the last time. Well, let's just use this one that's already here. And it's not telling me I have a geographic transformation. They're probably using the same datum but different projections. Cell size, ooh, this is going to be a bit of a problem. I want the cell size to not resample to 101 because the DEM should be about 30. So that's going to be a little bit of an issue. So I will change that right here to 30. Let's see, does this let me grab my cell size from, it may let me grab my cell size from the original data. Okay. So obviously I'm doing this without a script. I'm seeing what happens there. Okay, there we go. So we've got getting it from the DEM. It says the DEM is 30 meters by 30 meters. That looks great. So let's run it. And what should happen here is that this DEM is going to be reprojected to match Bonner County. And we may or may not get it automatically showing over here in the table of contents. We'll let it run. And since I haven't done this in advance, I can't remember how much time it takes to do this. So I will try to come up with some other things to say off the top of my head. Hopefully this little demo gives you a little bit more insight into how to manage data here in Art Catalog. Art Catalog is something that I've seen students ignore a lot. They prefer to do things in ArcMap rather than over here in Art Catalog, but This is a pretty powerful portion of ArcGIS. It allows you to do a lot of things, including, like, this is an analytical routine. It's a pre-processing procedure most of the time, that we do it ahead of using the DEM in any kind of analysis or any other kind of data set. For example, I reprojected some of those vector data sets by importing them into the geodatabase using the feature data sets. Pre-processing may take up quite a bit of time depending on how many different data sets you're pulling into a project and how much reprojection you need to do on them. In general, the vector data sets are going to reproject faster, and that will also depend upon how many points or lines or polygons are in them, how complex they are. The more complex they are, the longer it's going to take to run a reprojection given the same area. Raster data sets you're seeing here can take a few minutes, depending on how complex the raster is. It may take a little while for that to happen. And if that does occur, you can just wander away from the computer for a while, go get a cup of coffee or something. I usually would grab a Mountain Dew or a snack. While I'm waiting for this to work, I'm obviously trying to come up with some other things to say that are important and appropriate. What else is there that we can say about this? If I run, the other thing that I'm doing here is that you might notice that I have ArcMap open down there along the taskbar, but I don't have anything actually loaded and active in ArcMap at this time. It is a blank canvas. I have not yet created the project file for this Practical 00. I've just left that empty, and I did that on purpose because if I had ArcMap open with any of these data sets loaded in it, that will produce what's known as a lock condition on the data sets. And when a lock is in place, you will notice if you explore the folder in Windows Explorer that there's an actual lock file. It's a temporary file that gets created, and it prevents other ARC modules from accessing the same data set and changing it. So the lock file is something that it can be a big problem if you have a lot of things that you're messing with here in ARC catalog, and then you try to do something with them in ArcMap. You'll get an exception error where ArcGIS will tell you, well, there's a lock on this data set. You can't do anything to it until the other module is completely shut down and no longer accessing that file, and hence no longer locking it. It's kind of like if you're familiar with how to set up files within an operating system. It's like creating it in a write protect format. It's a temporary write protect. It blocks modification to the data set. So that's something that's in place to keep you from messing with a data set that is open someplace else. And ideally, you're not going to be able to affect any changes to it. So be aware of that. That's why I'm doing these things right now here in ARC catalog and running this little reprojection routine here. I can run it from ArcMap just as easily, but I'm doing it in ARC catalog first. I'm preparing my data so that I can go into ArcMap and then start doing things with it. So now we're kind of waiting a little bit more for the raster to be done. It should be almost completed here. What else can I mention about data management at this point in time that's really important? The lock files, naming conventions. When this particular routine gets done, I'll be done with the pre-processing that I want to do today. And so what will happen next is that I will shut the ARC catalog down completely, Okay, now it's starting to write. Great, we finally see the progress bar. Let's see what's happening here. So when this completes, I'm going to shut down our catalog so it no longer has any locks in place. And then I will jump into ArcMap and do a few things there in ArcMap, and then we'll go into how to create a zip archive. All right, so there it is. Cool. Project raster worked. I'll close our toolbox, and I'll look over here and see that I'll click on this to make sure it's what I think it is. Double check your data once you create it. We've got a GCS North America NAD 83 State Plane of Idaho. So this one is now what I want to be using in this project. My raster here, my BC DEM, the original that I downloaded, that I got from the USGS originally a long time ago, it's not what I need. I know that I've got a copy of it here in my 0 folder, which we'll explore a little bit later what we do with this. So I've got an original here. I don't necessarily need this thing up here. It's not open in any projects right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete it. I'm just going to get rid of it. I don't need this one anymore. Now what I could have done is I could have run the project raster routine from here in my 0 folder, projected it and properly and put it into the raster folder. I just didn't do it that way. For this demo, I just did it this way so that I can demonstrate this. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to delete it only in our catalog. I'm not going to use Windows Explorer. I'm going to click it, bang, there it goes, it's gone. And so I've deleted that data set. It's gone forever, and we won't miss it because we've got a new projected one that we can use. So let's close these things up. So the next time I open up our catalog, is going to be kind of a clean entry. I'll just see all these things over here. I'm going to close it down. And now we've got some folders over here that I had open. Okay, that's the setup that I want to have for later. So now let's go into ArcMap. And so notice it's an empty project. There's nothing going on yet. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to add in data. I don't need to save the project file first. I can just go whoop, straight into, there we go, adding data, and make sure I'm in the right place. I'm in the right general folder and my subfolders. So I can go into databases. I'm going to I'll add in just a selection of things, kind of at random. Places, grab the roads. And I'm just doing some things here. This is nothing I'm not doing anything in particular. I'm just grabbing some things for showing you folks. Let's see here. Yeah, just the polys. Just to demonstrate some things about how to eventually wind up with a project folder in a zip archive so that you can share it with me and with anyone else. I'm going to add the DEM in as a TIFF. Let's see here. I'll go change this to no color. We can see the DEM through it. So obviously this other data set is a lot larger than just Bonner County. It's for the entire state of Idaho. That's something we might want to address here at some point in time. Let's see here. Let's add in for our vector data sets. Let's add in the counties and make those transparent as well. And then anything else that I should add in? That ought to do for now. Okay, let's just add those in. Let's do a couple simple operations just to demonstrate some things that you might need to know. You will get exposed to these in other places as well. But while I've got them open, might as well take advantage of that, and then we'll create an archive. So one of the things that you need to do for these practicals, at one point or another in time, we're going to need to modify things that extend outside of Bonner County proper, that extend outside of our study area, basically. So our study area here is represented by the Landsat, or the DEM, excuse me, underneath. These are all in the right projection. They're all what we need to do analysis, except that notice some of them are contain information that are larger than Bonner County, stuff we don't need. And one of the data sets is for the entire state, which we definitely don't need. We don't need all that information. So we're going to do an operation here, a couple of operations, and show you a little bit more about data management and the proper way, or one of the ways that you can reduce data sets to your study area. So I'm going to work with the county's data set. I'm going to open up its table. And I've got multiple counties in here. There's 7, maybe 8 total. 8 counties around Bonner County, including Bonner County. And I really want to be able to use Bonner County as a cookie cutter. So how do I go about doing that? I'm going to highlight Bonner County here in the table. While it's selected and highlighted, it gets highlighted out here in ArcMap, so I know it's active. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to export data from the county's data set. I'm going to export it. Selected features only. I do have other options here, but I'm going to do selected features. Use the same coordinate system as this layers data, source data. Great. I'm going to put it not there. I want it to go somewhere else. I always got to watch where this thing is going. ArcGIS will remember things from prior sessions, and it may choose a location that you don't want to use. So I need to make sure every single time that I put an output, or I generate an output, it's going to go where I want it to go. So it's in a geodatabase. I'm going to put it back, or it's actually in the counties, is in the vector folder. But I want to use it as part of my overall geodatabase. And I know that this particular data set actually came from Bonner County. It's in the right coordinate system. So I'm going to call this the county outline. Save it in my geodatabase for Practical 0. I can save it anywhere I wanted to. And since I'm saving it in a geodatabase, I have the option here. It's going to save it as a feature class. I could save it outside in the vector folder as a shapefile. If I wanted to, it would work exactly the same way either place. So I'm going to save it here. County outline. We want it, and we're going to add it as a new data set, and there it is. So now I'm going to remove, or I'm going to go back to, yeah, I can just remove it for now. Just remove it from here. I don't need it anymore. I'm not deleting it. I'm just getting it out of my table of contents. That's an important thing to remember. This doesn't delete anything. It just gets it out of the table of contents. And so now I've got the county outline. I'm going to leave it blue. And I can use this in ArcGIS as a cookie cutter. So how I do that is I go up to the geoprocessing window and I look for clip. It's a tool. It's one you use quite often, which is why it's up there. The clip features are going to be, well, the input features, excuse me, the input features, I want to clip common places. I want to clip them using the county outline. And look, see here, it's going for this default geodatabase. I don't want to use that. I want it to go somewhere else. I want it to go into my practicals folder for Practical 0. And I'm going to dump it into the geodatabase for the project. And it's BC Common Places. I'm just going to call it Common Places here. So it clips and adds them to the display in the table of contents, so I can remove my original, which doesn't delete it. It just takes it out of the table of contents. There, it's gone. Okay, so now I want to do that with the geology data set as well. I'll clip. Let's clip the geology polygons using the county outline. And look, again, it's going someplace I don't want it to go. You got to watch that every time. But now, since I've used this before as an output location, it'll use it here as an output location. So I'm going to call this Geology Polys. It's a little bit different than what the input name is, so I know it's something different. And it did that, so I can remove the original. Oops, after I close the window. Remove the original. There we go. And now the roads. The roads extend out beyond the county. And right now, I don't want that. So I'm going to geoprocess those as well. I'm going to clip out the roads using the county outline. And again, it's not going where I want it to go. Now it is. I'm just going to call it roads. And it clipped out the roads so I can get rid of the original. And now I've got data sets that are within the boundaries of Bonner County. Data sets that I'm interested in doing something with. I've got the DEM in there. Oh, let's see here. Let's make that visible. So I will turn those colors off for geology. Currently, turn those off. And then there's the DEM. There's the road system. The common places are kind of a horrible color. Let's make it again. Let's pick something. This time peony pink. Let's do peony pink. There we go. Shows up really nicely against that. The geology polygons are gray, so they're not showing up incredibly well. Actually, they're not gray at all, are they? That's not what's happening. That's something else for another day. Let's not worry about that right now. So let's say we've prepped this. We want to save it for now. And maybe let's pretend here's all the analysis we were going to do. We're just a visualization. That's it. I'll make it as large as it can be. Great. And now I'm going to save the map, but I have to go into Map Document Properties. I'm going to say Store Relative Path Names. I'm going to apply that. Okay. Then I'm going to save it as in the appropriate location. Practical 00 in the reports. That's where these go. So it's called PMO Practical 00. Oops, 00. Okay. So it's all saved. And now here's a place where people make mistakes. So it's something we need to mention out. Don't create a zip archive right now. Not while ARC is open and the files are active. Don't do that. It saves the lock temporary files, and then it makes it hard for anyone to do anything with your data later. So the proper thing to do is you shut down ArcMap completely. So ARC Catalog is shut down. ArcMap is shut down. ArcScene and ArcGlobe were never opened. So there should be no more lock files in place. So I want to prepare my data. So I've got two Windows Explorer windows open right now. So while I'm doing that, let's take a look here. Practical 00, I'm in the right place. Here's my databases. So here's what these databases kind of look like in Windows File Explorer. Let's look at this geodatabase. Notice there's all kinds of files in here. You don't want to mess with these, and don't do anything with them here in Windows Explorer except copy them, and only under certain conditions, which I'm showing you right now. So to create a zip archive, I want all of these folders: databases, images, rasters, reports, vectors, whatever other subfolders are in here that I might create for different types of data. I don't want the 0 folder. Okay, this is something that I call ground 0. And the reason why I used the name 0 is so that it's last alphabetically. And so it's easy to see, here's something I need to move. So on the right, I've got my practicals work folder open. And I've got the project folders for practical 0, practical 1. I could have whatever in there. And I've got this transfers folder. So I don't want this one right now, but I might want it in the future. So I just copy it over here. And now I've only got these folders in my Practical 0 project folder. So I'll jump up to that one. And now I'm out here. I want to share this with someone else, like say maybe my instructor or my supervisor. So in Windows, I just right click on this thing and I say send to, a compressed zip folder, and it will go through the process of generating one for you. This is not 7-zip, it is not WinRAR, it's not anything spectacular. It's just a simple generic zip archive, which can be opened on any computer in the world. It compresses the data. It's now a zip archive. This is what I upload into BBLearn if my instructor or my supervisor asks me to, which you will be doing on these practicals. So I just zip that one up, I upload it, and now I go back and say, all right, my transfer, I put 0 back in so that my entire project archive for me is still here. All the data sets that I used, including my originals, are still here. I did not share them with someone who doesn't need to see them. I only shared the stuff that we're actually using in the project. So that's how you do it. Okay. Then we upload that using the submissions. This becomes part of your submission to practical whatever, in this case practical 0, which we don't actually have. This is just a demo. And so hopefully that shows you a little bit more about how to manage data properly for this class. And if you go further in geospatial analysis, whether it's in more GIS classes or remote sensing classes, follow these things that I'm putting into the practicals, and you're going to save yourself a lot of heartache. It will stop certain problems from ever happening in other data management systems, in other geospatial analysis systems, and they will stop things from occurring, errors from occurring in ArcGIS. So this becomes something that you upload into BBLearn. I download it, and here's what I will do. I will temporarily put this practical 0 here. So what I will do when I download your data sets is I will say, all right, here's my data set from student X. I'm going to extract. I'm going to put it right there. It's going to extract it into a folder with the proper name convention. Your initials, practical XX, whatever goes here. In this case, it's practical 00. It opens up, and I say, cool. What's in here? Oh, there's the report. That's what I'm expecting to see. I double click on this. And then what happens is that ArcGIS, if I don't already have it open, it's going to open. And ideally what's going to happen, and we'll see if I did it correctly or not, ideally what's going to happen is that it will open up and display exactly the same way as the last time it was being displayed in ArcMap by whoever created it. And of course it's doing something a little bit odd. It's opening up in my other window, so let me go grab it. I don't know why it did that. Okay, here we go. So I have dual screens. Some screens, for some reason, they open up over there. Here's exactly what I had open before. It's what I'm looking for. Great. If I need to look for data, there it is. You know, it's in this folder structure. I know what to look for. I know where they're supposed to be because you're following the data protocol that I am telling you to use, so that I know where to find things. And this would be simulating what would happen in an office or an agency. When you're sharing data with someone else, if you use a common data management protocol like this, then people know if they need something out of a geodatabase, it's going to be in the databases folder. They know if they need vector data, it's going to be in the vector folder as a standalone shapefile. They know rasters are, not surprisingly, located in the raster folder. So this is why I'm using that. Quite often we have to share data with other people, and if you set it up in a way that's predictable and manageable, they will appreciate it, and you will be a lot more efficient, and people will respect you for that, rather than being a total mess on things. So I'm going to say, no, we're not going to save changes. I don't need to. It's fine. So there we go. That's how that all works, and that's the procedure that I will use when I look at your stuff. So I'm just going to transfer my original back over here. There we go. So the transfer folder is something that I use quite a bit. I use something, I call it transfers or something along those lines for these purposes. And I can't think of anything else to say at this point in time. Hopefully this shows you some things that will come in handy during this class, if not in the future.